not a few minutes, a few weeks before COVID started. She oversaw national branding and communications for Friends of the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, and before that worked in development at Hadassah, something actually we also share, which we can catch up about later. More of Rebecca's bio is on the conference website, which you may have already seen, including her Instagram and Facebook, so head over there to follow her on those. Format today is pretty straightforward. In a moment, I'm going to turn things over to Rebecca. She'll present for a bit, and then we'll open up for Q&A. You can chat your questions. We'd love to hear your voice, though, so we prefer that you raise your hand later when it's time for it, and we'll call on you so we can hear you. And with that, I will turn things over to Rebecca. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much for that kind introduction, Gabe. It's really nice to see so many of your faces, and thank you for joining me today. As Gabe said, I recently joined the JCC, so this is actually my first ProCon conference, and it's been incredibly inspirational. The panels that I've been to so far have focused mostly on macro topics, and today, for the purpose of this discussion, we're going to drill down to more of the micro, and I'm going to try and provide you with some concrete ideas and tools that can help you reach your goals through your marketing efforts. So before we jump into that, like any marketer, I'd like to get kind of a read of the room. So we're going to start with a quick poll. So Gabe, go ahead and tee that up.
2 questions, not a heavy lift. Hopefully everybody sees it.
So we'd like to know just a little bit about your role.
All right, we got about 40% of folks have voted already. The tally's coming in. Thank you all for voting. 70%. Okay. Fingers, what was that game show? Fingers on buzzers. Yeah, it's a very responsive group. All right, we're about 86%. All right, last chance for those who want to vote and share with us what's happening with you and your end. 92%. All right, we're going to end the poll. I'm going to share the results out, and here we are.
All right, so we have the majority marketing communications professionals, 45%, programming professionals at 39%. I think that this presentation will apply well to both of those types of positions, as well as some exec and other. Great. Now, the second question was just for fun. We wanted to know what you're wearing, because who ever thought that we would be attending a professional conference, possibly in our sweatpants? And I'm guilty of that. I'm in my professional shirt, my sweatpants, and my Birkenstocks. And, you know, maybe that would normally fly for a camp type of position, but I never in my life thought I'd be at a professional conference in my Birkenstocks. And I think that just kind of shows how 2020 sort of turned everything on its head and required us to change course, become more innovative, more resourceful, and just rethink the way that we do business. So for the presentation that I'm going to show you today, it's our campaign for children's programming to try and drive registrations for that. But it's an example of how necessity turned into opportunity for my JCC to really fine tune our marketing strategy and find opportunities for savings to expand our reach and ultimately yield better results than we had anticipated. So we feel that we found a winning model that we're going to carry forward. And there are many facets to it that I hope you can also take some of to apply to your JCC. So let me dive into the presentation by sharing my screen first. Give me just one moment. Here we go. So I am still seeing my results. Okay.
Looks good.
Great. Everyone can see it. Great. All right. So first, I'll just kind of set up the challenge. I mean, it sort of goes without saying that we found ourselves in the height of the pandemic in New Jersey, right at a critical time for us to begin our recruitment period for our winter children's programming. So that includes sports, dance, language, all of these programs that drive real revenue for our organization. And we needed to rethink how to reach our constituents. Traditionally, our JCC printed program guides, so this is an example in front of you of what that program guide looked like. It was essentially a listing of everything that was going on at our JCC. And we distributed our program guide in the building. We had thousands of people coming through each week, and also through a mailing. But the truth is that it was very costly. So we had print costs, postage costs, additional fees. And before we knew it, we were spending about $4,000 on these print guides. And how many of you have been in the situation where a date changes, a class changes, and then all of a sudden your print program guide is out of date? So that's something that happened to us. And most worrisome was that they weren't that engaging, these print guides. And we thought that most likely they would end up just in people's trash. So after spending all of this money, they weren't really creating the impact that we wanted them to have. So our solution was to devise a multifaceted approach, but relying heavily on digital. So as we know, at the beginning of the pandemic, coronavirus sparked this jump in social media use. With more Americans isolated, they were looking to social media to stay connected, stay entertained. And we felt, that's where we're going to find our people online. They're not coming into our building anymore. So we wanted to primarily focus on the digital front and put our time and resources there. So having said that, we didn't totally throw out print, because print does still work. It's still nice to get something in the mail, but we decided to just completely reimagine it and create a mailer that we thought would be more engaging. And the ultimate goal of it was to drive people to our website for more information. So our biggest concern was that we didn't want it to end up in the trash. So we decided to design it as a Hanukkah themed gift. It was, right in December, and we thought, have a little bow around it, and who throws away a gift? A tip for direct mail. They say in direct mail that the most expensive mailer is the one that doesn't get opened. So you want to spend a little bit more thought and time on the outside of your mailing. Just invest a little bit more in the way that it looks, because so often we spend all of this time wordsmithing, designing everything that goes inside, but then put it in sort of an outer envelope that just looks kind of generic. So this piece was a self mailer, a gift wrapped in a bow. This isn't a real bow. This is all part of the design. And then inside, it was filled with just fun-filled activities that kids could engage with for several days. So they were all of the activities were representative of the different programs that we offer at the JCC. But instead of having sort of details about the program, we just wanted kids to just have fun with our marketing piece. So there are all of these kind of different, doodle activities and word searches, spot the differences. And what it was doing was positioning our JCC as a source for fun for people. So this is an example of, these are some cuties in our community engaging with our mailer. And we wanted it to sit on people's kitchen tables for several days with our brand, the JCC's brand, top of people's minds as their kids are filling out this mailer for a few days. Then when they were done, they would scan a QR code, and that would take them to a landing page that had the answers to the mailing, to the activities in the mailing, as well as deep links to our program registration. So instead of putting our effort into that print program guide, we decided to make our web page attractive and interactive, and spend our time and our effort there, so that then all of the other tactics that we would come to fruition in our campaign would be driving people to this page. And this was the source of information where they could find out all of the various classes, class descriptions, teachers, etc. So of course, besides the families that were in our database who received the mailing, we always want to go wider than our current database to capture new business. So the way that we did that was to turn our print mailing into a digital piece. And then we decided to blast it out on social media. Many of you probably have parenting groups on Facebook in your communities. And by offering them something that they could, use with their kids or offering some sort of gift, it allowed us to get our programming right in front of them. So we were planning on blasting out our digital piece on, I think it was like a Thursday. And then we happened to have a snow day on a Tuesday. So we decided, you know what, let's rally and let's like quickly get this out now. So that we could give people something to do with their kids on a snow day. So it just kind of shows how timing can be everything. So once they received this in their social media feeds, it took them to a link where they would give us their email addresses and then they would get the full activity sheet. So it was a way for us to capture leads and then follow up with those people. So within a couple of hours, we had about 40 new families who had filled out our form. So for us, that was great news. And the timing really worked in our favor to send that out on a snow day. So the next aspect of our campaign was to develop an email and social media campaign that could complement the mailer. So we wanted the email campaign to be in inboxes around the same time as the in-home date for the mailer, because we know that reinforcing the messaging on different channels, social media, email, mailer, makes people more likely to actually act. So to devise our email campaign, we first focused on developing rich content. We felt that the best way to make the case for why children in the middle of a pandemic should join our programs was to ask parents themselves. So we had our directors ask parents who were enrolling their children why they were enrolling their children in the middle of the pandemic. And we got from that some beautiful content and testimonials that was really useful for us to craft the campaign. So we ended up packaging those testimonials under an umbrella slogan, "This winter, I'm choosing the JCC." And for that, for us, it was this really empowering statement, because we heard from parents that, they felt kind of helpless during the pandemic. They had their kids home all day. They felt they had nothing to do with them. And these themes kind of surfaced over and over again as we were speaking to parents. And we kind of turned that around and said, you know what, you have a choice. We're empowering you to make the choice to choose the JCC and ultimately choose happiness for your child. And we'll show you why and how. And we kind of outlined that, which I'll get to. So as we did this, this is an animated GIF that we created for the campaign. We went to parents for each of our program verticals: music, swim, dance, and they told us how their kids they needed to expend energy, or they really needed structure for their kids after being at home without a routine and schedule. Or they needed the socialization, the self-expression, whatever those elements were, then helped us devise this email campaign. So first we used parent testimonials in the email campaign, because hearing from parents is much more powerful than hearing from us. We can say, come to the JCC, but when you hear it from a parent saying, I'm putting my child here because XYZ, it makes a more powerful case. And then for each of our emails, we gave 5 reasons why you should choose to take dance or a music class or a language class as well. And each of the 5 points came directly from parents themselves. And these were just themes. This is another example of our sports vertical. These were themes that sort of kept resurfacing. So we created emails for each of our programs and then segmented our lists. So I'm going to give you a couple of quick tips to up your email game that hopefully will help you. And we found really increased our open rates, increased our click-through rates, and ultimately drove the registrations for us. So the first, like I said, is segmenting your lists. So instead of sending families, 5 emails about every single different type of program, we looked at families based on their past interest and participation in programs. So we went back 3 years and said any family whose child has taken a swim class, they're going to get an email about swimming because we know that that's their interest. And what that allows you to do is target your messaging. So we can say to them, we loved having you at swim class last year, and we hope you'll join us again, which is a much more powerful statement than just saying, come to swim class. When you customize it and you share that you know your constituents and the way that they've engaged with you in the past, it can really pay off. Of course, when we pulled our list, we also then, capped the age. So if somebody was 16 last year and they're no longer eligible at 17, then, we took them off the list. But that's a really powerful way to be able to speak directly to your program participants. The second tactic that we tried that was really successful is to use known senders. So oftentimes we send our emails out from JCC on the Palisades. For this campaign, we sent it from the program director. So the swim director we had her name as the sender for emails. For the dance director, it was their names. And that makes it a lot more personal. People are more likely to open an email from someone that they know. And even if they don't know that person, if it's a new director, for instance, they're still more likely to open it from a person with a name versus an institution. So I encourage you to test that and try it because we've had great success there. Keep your subject lines really short and grabbing. We used for this campaign several suggestive sort of teaser subject lines. One was your ticket to Israel. So that was for our Hebrew language immersion program. In the middle of a pandemic, to get a subject line, your ticket to Israel, it generated almost a 70% open rate, which was really great for us. About this winter, you're kind of like, what does that mean? We've got your solution. So instead of being so literal about your subject lines, making them sort of teasers and grabbing has worked well for us. Some other tactics you could try is to create a sense of urgency. That works really well for a fundraising campaign or a registration period that has an end date. For us, most of ours are on a rolling basis, but if you have an end date, it's great to build up that urgency, use it in your subject line. Also, personalize your emails. It's something that we oftentimes have a hard time with because we don't always trust our data. But in any case where you're able to say, Dear Jane, instead of Dear Friend, we know that to yield a higher click-through rate and higher conversion rate. Finally, keep your content to under 125 words. That's the optimal, maximum number of words. Even less is better. And write short paragraphs or bullets. So you saw in our emails, it was quite a lot of copy for an email, but we used bullets, and that made it just a lot more engaging. I also advise you against using single graphics in your email because those can go to spam and they're not mobile optimized. So as much as you can use a mix of graphics and text, those are the emails that tend to perform the strongest. Finally, we also included the director's contact information in emails. And, we saw that right after an email went out, there was a significant uptick in calls. So people will reach out, they'll ask their questions, and hopefully that personal interaction will lead to conversions. So next up, we use the content that we created, so the testimonials and the personal experiences, we use that content in our social media feeds. Our strategy for our social media Instagram in particular, is that we like to show the faces of our community. And it was a powerful way during the pandemic to bring people together and still make people feel connected to each other. And we try and we've tried to move away from promotional content, explicit promotional content. So in this way, by sharing her personal experience that other moms probably relate to, it ended up having a more powerful effect than saying, come to join our swim class or come to join our sports class. We found that, our constituents would say, I can really relate to this mom and I can relate to this child's experience. And if she feels comfortable with the JCC, if she is able to get all of these great benefits from the JCC, maybe I can too. So these testimonials were a great way to get people to speak on our behalf in a sense, but we, essentially did all the legwork. So the results of this campaign, first of all, we saved about $3,000 in print costs. So our print costs were about a fourth of what they usually are. And that's because we printed in-house and the mailer was just a much smaller piece. It wasn't quite as robust as a catalog that we normally do. Our email open rate, like I said, had gone up significantly. It went up to 43%, which was up from our usual 20%. And I attribute that to the senders, the sender names, the subject lines, and then segmenting your list based on interest. Somebody's gonna open an email if they're interested in sports or dance or drama, etc. Finally, our email click-through rate was 48%, and that was up from our typical 8%. So we saw a huge jump there. We had about 1,300 people who visited our landing pages. So that came from a variety of sources, from the mailer, the email, social media. We also didn't do any social media ads, but that's a great way as well to drive people to a landing page. And the results were, like I said, about 1,300 people. And then the form that I mentioned for new leads resulted in about 63 new families who filled out our form. So our total revenue was about 151,000. It's really tough to know on a normal year how that would compare, but I can tell you that we far surpassed our expectations. And moving forward, we feel that this model is where the world is going to, like kind of letting go of some of our traditional print tactics and putting more effort and time into the digital realm. So that's it for me for today. First, I have to thank all of you for coming, and I would also like to credit my fabulous team. I didn't do any of this alone. I have terrific leadership under Chris Strom, who many of you may know, and we have an incredibly talented creative director, Rebecca Seaman, who also many of you may know. But if anyone has questions, I'd love to take them now. Also, please take my contact information. I would be happy to stay in touch with you. I also encourage you to follow us on social media. We would love to have more Instagram followers. It's an effort that we've just started ramping up. So without further ado, let me open it up for questions.
Rebecca, thank you. I'm going to jump in and thank you. And maybe you'll, I guess once folks have a chance to write down your contact information, you can unshare so we can see everybody. 2 questions from the chat that came in. Well, first of all, I just want to say it's clear why the Kaplen JCC was chosen to present in this showcase. So thank you. It's clear from this initiative. 2 specific questions that came in, I don't think Chris answered. In the chat, he was answering a few of them, is whether when you use specific names of staff members the email was coming from, was the return all going to one email inbox, or were they actually fielding those replies? And the second one is, were you capturing their info when they signed up in the form back in your CRM or some other platform? It's sort of technically how were you doing that?
Yeah, so I'll take the first question first. It actually depended on the director. So some directors like to have the one-on-one conversations. They like to have the replies come to them. They're really great at selling their programs, keeping in contact with leads, and they preferred for for any replies to go to them. I would say the majority, though, of the replies were centralized on one single email address, and then we have a system to check those return emails and make sure that they're followed up with. So ideally, you would have some type of communication track whenever a new prospect comes in, that somebody's calling them back within 24 hours or emailing them back straight away. And then there's follow-up after that. So within 2 days, they might get another email from us. 2 weeks, it might be a third one. Depending on how they interact with those emails, you might put them on a different pathway.
Thank you. Folks are welcome to use a raise hand to ask a question out loud, but not seeing that at the moment, I'll just keep asking a couple that came in. Someone has asked.
Sorry, if I can just before that, the second question sort of relates to the first.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so similarly, any leads that would come in would enter into a pipeline of communication where you are, systematically following up with them and tracking that follow-up. But for sure, any leads that come in through a form, you want to put into your database and make sure that you're communicating with them.
Great, sorry about that. There's a question about how large the team is. You referenced the team and how large your team is and sort of what kind of resources were brought to bear on this particular campaign, and in general, just an overview of what the team looks like at Kaplen.
Yeah, so don't be intimidated if you're a smaller JCC, because I'm mostly a one-woman show with the family and youth programming marketing, but I work very closely with our creative director. So she does all of our graphic design. If you don't have an in-house graphic design person, hopefully there's somebody who you work with outside. There are some great resources for students who you can employ to help you with graphic design. But I would say, it was essentially like a 1 to 2 person job. And Chris Strom is kind of our visionary who helps to direct us when we have questions. Good.
Folks in the room, did I miss a question that someone chatted? We're almost out of time in any case, but anything I missed? Someone did ask, someone's just asking, I don't know if you can see that yourself, Google Ads or Facebook Pixel to retarget those people who use the QR code.
Yeah, so we actually didn't for this campaign, but subsequently to that, we've launched some Google AdWord and social media campaigns. I actually work with Reach Local. Maybe some of you were at their earlier discussion today, which was terrific. And we've used those for camp and for our nursery school in the last couple of months. And we immediately saw within a couple weeks that there was a huge increase in the number of calls. So I feel very strongly that those tactics work for any of your larger campaigns that you're looking to drive registrations for. And retargeting is one of the tactics that we use for our social media and Google AdWord efforts.
Rebecca, thank you. I'm sure there are so many more questions that could be asked. We're out of time for this particular session, so I will answer one question, which is that the deck from today will be up on the conference site. Probably it'll take about a week before everything gets loaded, so check back there for Rebecca's deck. And I want to say thank you on behalf of everyone who is here and who will listen to this recording. What a marvelous presentation and initiative, and congratulations in general, especially given your relatively new tenure at the Kaplen JCC. It's really, really very remarkable, and we're thrilled that you agreed to share it with everyone here. With that, just a reminder for today, the second set of Excellent Showcase begins now. So I see some of you may be hopping off there. And we hope also we'll see a bunch of you at the J Cafe this afternoon. So Rebecca, thank you again. So long to everyone, and see you at the rest of ProCon. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today.